Hi, welcome back to Narrations by Sean. This time, we have a whole saga about someone known as Megatron Karen. She wants so badly for her son to have access to a fellow Australian woman's wheelchair. It's like her Allspark or something. The original story is titled, "My Son Wants a Go in Your Electronic Wheelchair, So Get Out So We Can Have a Go," posted by Fred Red. I've been browsing on this sub for a while and never thought I would post here. Oh, how I was wrong. Backstory: I'm a 29-year-old female that has been confined to a wheelchair since I was 17. I'm a quadriplegic and I can use a manual wheelchair at home, but use a power wheelchair in public for practical reasons. I mostly have full use of my upper body and partial use of my lower body. I've been mistaken for a paraplegic a few times. This happened about a month ago before the crap hit the fan with the virus in my town. I was downtown shopping for supplies for my inevitable self-isolation when I heard a deafening squeal from a child about 12. "Oh, that's a cool scooter! How fast does it go?" "Thanks, little man." "Yeah, it goes pretty fast. Can I have a go?" Thinking he meant to sit on my lap and I drive him around, which in any other scenario I would have been happy to do. Virus and all. "Sorry, dude, but not today." The kid says, Okay, and stomps away. I thought that was the end of it, but you know I wouldn't be here if it was. A few minutes later, I heard the ground start to tremble as Megatron Karen approaches. Oh boy, I thought, this is gonna be fun. "Excuse me, what did you say to my son?" He wanted a ride in my wheelchair?" I said no. "What did you just say to me? You need to respect your elders and not talk down to my poor little angel. You don't even need that wheelchair. I know your legs work. You're just faking it to get attention. Now let my son have a ride." She wouldn't have been much older than 35, so obviously not my elder. Even if my nan spoke to me like that, I wouldn't reply kindly. All of my patience officially gone. "My wheelchair costs more than your car, and you want me to miraculously heal out of my wheelchair so your dirty crotch goblin can take a joyride? Okay." Edit. Crotch goblin was smirking at me the entire time. Here's where the story gets graphic. I have hypermobility, which makes my joints extremely flexible, and dislocation easy and relatively painless. I also have titanium screws in my neck that creak loudly when I move a certain way. Bring on the Frankenstein. I lean forward, push down my right arm, dislocating my shoulder blade with a loud pop. As I twisted my neck to make it creak, and then pushed down my left hand to contort my arm and hand in an unnatural position. This all happened in a few seconds, but it was enough to make Karen, red-faced and horrified, scream out, "Stop! It's okay, Angel. Let's go." And they hurried out of the store. I could hear laughter coming from behind me as a friend who works there walked up to me and said, "That was mean." He knew me well and had seen me pull that trick before. Needless to say, I never had an issue like that again. It's a small town and news travels fast. Don't mess with the girl in the wheelchair. Edit. For those insisting I must be a troll because I don't know the difference between a quadriplegic and a paraplegic, look up Incomplete Quadriplegic and one of my stories about when I worked at Target. I was 16 at the time of that story. My injury happened when I was 17. Okay. So OP thought the story was over, but I wouldn't call this a saga if there wasn't more to it. Before we jump in, what is it with so many people thinking that people with disabilities are faking? Yeah, there's a bunch of people that would like to spend money on something that costs more than a car to ride around in. Or they'd like to spend a whole bunch of money going to doctors telling them about all these things that they're going to have to do just to try to live a typical life. Yeah, they'd like to go through all that just to get a little bit of extra attention. Newsflash, they don't. On to part 2. The next step in the saga is called Megatron Karen Tried to Take My Wheelchair from Me at the Gym. Posted again by Fred's Red. I posted a few months ago about a kid wanting a ride in my wheelchair and his mom Megatron Karen, throwing a fit when I said no. This is a continuation of that story. Karen accused me of faking my disability and wanting me to get out of my chair so her son could have a go. I hoped I would never see her again, but it turns out that Fatty Pumbaa decided to shred the lumps. Unfortunately, she chose my gym for that. Imagine how thrilled I was when I turned up to the gym today and saw Miss Megatron on the elliptical and it groaning under her weight. I'm a C4, C5 incomplete quadriplegic. I have mostly full use of my upper body and partial use of my legs, and I can stand with assistance, which is what I was about to do. I was dreading this because of what she said last time, and because I know she would be able to see me standing, and thus confirming to her that I'm faking it. There are videos of me on YouTube doing this. Search my Reddit username if you want to see them. As we were getting ready, I saw her from across the room glaring at me. I stood a few times and did some squats, and as I was finishing up, a staff member came rushing over laughing his head off. I didn't hear any of this, but Karen stomped over to reception and demanded to know why my wheelchair was allowed in the gym when she's not even disabled, and she had to be escorted out while threatening to take my wheelchair off me to prove she's faking it. I don't know what will happen to her, but I think they'll ban her from the gym. My trainer, the owner, doesn't take cow patty off anyone. I'll be getting a new power chair soon, and I hope I run into her, pun intended, down the street. Even if I'm faking it, I'll still be able to outrun her. Oh, and side note, I'm not fat shaming, just Karen shaming. I'm all about that bass, of which I have plenty. At this point, you may be wondering, as I did when I first found this story, what is it with this woman and why can't she just let this go? You don't need a wheelchair, your kid doesn't need a wheelchair. How many more times can you embarrass yourself in public? Well, we at least know of 3, because here's the next part. Also from Fred's Red. The latest part of the story, because we can't say final with this crazy lady, is titled Karen Demands I Get Out of My Wheelchair, a follow-on to My Son Wants a Ride in Your Electronic Wheelchair. So get out so he can have a go. Megatron Karen returns. One of my first posts on here was about a Karen demanding I get out of my power wheelchair and let her son have a go, and then freaking out when I said no. I'd only had one other encounter with her since that happened, which I hope would have been my last. Unfortunately, that is not the case. Megatron Karen strikes again. I'm an incomplete C4, C5 quadriplegic, and although I have use of my upper body, I still rely on my power wheelchair to get me around town. I recently received a new power wheelchair and I'm still getting used to it. Although it looks slightly different than my old one, it's still a Karen magnet. This happened a few days ago when I was downtown doing some shopping. As I was leaving the mall, I saw Karen and her son, 12 years old, walking in. I wanted to turn and go the other way, but she had already seen me. In hindsight, I should have stayed in the mall and waited for her to lose sight of me. But in that moment, I just wanted to get as far away from her as possible. So I exited the mall, hoping Karen wouldn't follow me, but you know I wouldn't be telling the story if that were the end of it. There was a discount clothing shop just outside of the mall, which I was planning to go to, so that's where I went. I was in there for a few minutes when I got the feeling someone was watching me, so I turned to see Karen and her son near the entrance, and Karen was glaring at me. When I looked at her, she immediately looked away, pretending she was shopping. I headed to the plus side section, hoping she'd lose sight of me, but in retrospect, it was a bad idea. I call her Megatron Karen for a reason. When I got to the plus side section, I naively thought I was safe, but oh no, dear readers, it had only just begun. I started looking through the section on the racks, when not long after, I got the same feeling that I was being watched. I looked around and saw Karen at the end of the aisle, looking at me, but when she saw me see her, she looked away. Then came a strange game of cat and mouse. I went to another aisle and she followed me. Then I went back the other way and she followed me. To avoid a scene, I left the store, hoping to outrun her. Unfortunately though, I was not that lucky. As I left the store and was going down the block, I got the same feeling as before. So I turned around and wouldn't you know it, there she was. What the crap is wrong with you, lady? Why are you following me? Excuse me, I'm not following you. Okay then, going in the opposite direction to call her bluff. Guess what? The lunatic followed me. I could hear her coming up close behind me, so I stopped short, causing her to run into the back of my power chair. The sounds that followed were very satisfying, as she hit her knee hard onto the bar that's on the back of my chair, hit her belly directly onto a hook that's near the top where a headrest can be placed, and almost fell butt over boob in an attempt to correct her balance. What is wrong with you? You could have killed me! That wouldn't have happened if you weren't following me. Now what do you want? After muttering incoherent slurs in anger and pain from getting front-ended by the back of my chair. You insolent little... Get out of that wheelchair now, before I call the police on you for assault. Really, lady? How about you take a look above your head? Pointing to the CCTV camera directly outside the store that I stopped in front of. That will show you following me, as will the one inside the store where we were before, and in the mall you followed me out of. Please, Karen, call the police. I dare you. Better yet, how about I call the police and press charges on you for harassment? Through this entire encounter, her son was trailing behind her with his tail between his legs, with a look of embarrassment and shame on his face for what his mother was doing. Getting out my phone to take a picture of her face. This picture is timestamped with my location. If I ever see you again, you will leave me the heck alone, or I will show this to the police, who will be more than happy to review the cameras. Karen just stared at me like a deer caught in headlights, with her mouth doing a brilliant goldfish impression. I left to continue my shopping. I haven't seen her since, but I hope she took my threat seriously. I didn't want to take things further because that would probably get docs involved, Australian version of CPS. But if anything else happens, I'll be sure to post it. Thanks for reading. Looks like this Megatron Karen met her Optimus Prime. Wow. That's the craziest thing I've ever heard. What is it about a wheelchair that's so important? The kid didn't need it, she didn't need it. Could it have been the fact that OP told her no? One will never know. But maybe the threat of the police knowing who she is will cause her internal GPS to do a little recalculating. But if she doesn't, we'll be here for the next installment of Megatron Karen. I hope you enjoyed this odyssey as much as I did going through it. If you did, leave a comment, like, share, and subscribe, and we will see you next time.